Democrats rally in Chicago, and redistricting likely heads to court again. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. Ohio Democrats, minus Sherrod Brown, head to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention next week. A month ago, this meeting would have looked a lot different. Joe Biden was ready to accept the nomination, but facing serious questions about his age. Biden's withdrawal could have made this convention very messy, with a floor fight for the nomination. But Democrats quickly united behind Kamala Harris, and for now, they are excited about her prospects against former President Donald Trump. Derek, when you think about it, a month, 6 weeks ago, how different is this convention going to be of what it could have been?
It's night and day. It's night and day for sure. Democrats are going into this convention energized, excited about what Vice President Harris is going to bring to the the convention in terms of platform. I think you see a very united Democratic Party right now, and it's really taken all of the air out of the balloon for the Trump campaign. I mean, it's spiraling right now.
So, Terry, how do Republicans view this convention? Now, the Republican convention, of course, happened right after the assassination attempt. It was, just an incredibly odd time, scary time, but also unifying time for Republicans. How did Republicans view this convention on the Democratic side?
Well, they're going to be looking at policy questions because this week Harris has rolled out some ideas economically like price controls, et cetera. And then there's some other new spending programs she's come up with. So the question is she going to tack to the middle or is she going to go farther left? So I think the more that this is about policy, the better off it is. But my prediction early, one of them, is the key date's going to be September 10th. That's when the first debate is. By then we'll be over the honeymoon, maybe, or part of it from the convention and Harris being named. So September is going to be the big time when the action happens or doesn't.
Derek, Kamala Harris has not done any interviews, really, not done any news conferences. It's all been very scripted since she took over the top spot in the ticket. Should she have done more things prior to this convention?
I don't think so. I think the vice president is quite capable of answering any question that comes from the press. I think that she's taking this time right now to get reacquainted with her voters, right? Before she was the vice president, she's the vice president now, but before she was just the vice president that was running on the ticket with President Biden. Now she's in the driver's seat being the candidate for president, and quite honestly, she's taking this time just to get reacquainted with her voters.
She's going to have to do an interview at some point.
And she will.
Yep.
She will do interviews at some point.
Jesse, J.D. Vance from Ohio got a starring role in the Republican convention. Sherrod Brown's not going to this convention. What is Ohio's role going to be in the Democratic convention? Most people believe Donald Trump has this state sewn up. The leading Senate candidate's not going to be there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think it'll be interesting how the Harris ticket is going to be different for Sherrod Brown than the Biden ticket would have been. It's hard. There hasn't been a lot of public polling in Ohio, but I think generally that enthusiasm you're seeing for Democrats can only help Sherrod Brown in the state of Ohio. What he really needs to do is perform well with both his base of Democratic voters and those crossover voters. And you're seeing that in the advertisements and who Sherrod Brown is speaking to, the kind of topics that he's choosing to discuss. And you saw a little bit of it from Tim Ryan the last cycle, but I think Sherrod Brown is perhaps certainly a more seasoned and a veteran politician than Ryan.
Jake, there has not been a whole lot of public polling. The AARP had him up by 4. Other polls have him up by 5, Sherrod Brown, that is. It's outside the margin of error, but not by much. It's still a very tight race and basically remains so throughout, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a snapshot in time in July. I don't think too many voters are really paying all that close of attention just yet on the election. So I think there's a lot of room in there. You also have someone like Sherrod Brown, who I think voters know, they're familiar with him. He's been on the ballot for years and years and years versus Bernie Moreno, who's still this new figure, and people are acclimating to him and learning who he is and what he's about. So I wouldn't put too much stock in any one poll now.
Well, I would argue in that poll, if Sherrod's only ahead now by 4 points after he spent literally tens of millions of dollars minute after minute on TV. He ought to be up by more than that. But again, it's a long ways. By September is when people start tuning in, real people who've been busy in the summer with their families and vacations.
The National Republican Senatorial Committee has canceled $700,000 in cable TV ads for the fall. Should we read anything into that?
No, that's what's called an internal shift, because when you take it from bought by that one committee at the higher non-candidate rate, if you switch it and combine it with the candidate, you get the lower rate. So it's more of an internal thing. It doesn't really signal anything major significantly. But good or bad, as I warned the last time I was here, in September is when, if you thought TV's bad now, wait till September and October.
Yes, that amount, $700,000 is 1/4% of what's going to be spent in this campaign. So it's a drop in the bucket.
Only thing I was going to add is that Senator Brown, the voters know him. He's been on the ballot several times in this state. And because he is up and outside of the margin of error right now, with Vice President Harris now being the presidential nominee, that's only going to help Senator Brown moving into the general election.
Does that help him in Northeast Ohio, in particular African-American vote? Folks might be willing to come out and support Kamala Harris, who didn't support Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton before.
Absolutely. When you think about this election, this is going to be another historic election, electing the first African-American, Indian, Jamaican born president of the United States. So there's going to be a lot of momentum. There's going to be a lot of folks that are going to come out and do grassroots campaigning for the vice president, and that's only going to help the Senator Sherrod Brown.
Okay. The Ohio Secretary of State's office took some creative license when it wrote ballot language for the proposed redistricting amendment. The amendment aims to end gerrymandering by putting the process in the hands of an independent commission. Now, here's what voters will see as of right now. The proposed amendment would repeal constitutional protections against gerrymandering approved by nearly 3/4 of Ohio electors participating in the statewide elections of 2015 and 2018, and eliminate the long-standing ability of Ohio citizens to hold their representatives accountable for establishing fair state legislative and congressional districts. The ballot board approved the language on Friday and the 3-page summary in a partisan vote. Secretary of State Frank LaRose said he genuinely believes it was their best effort to truthfully summarize the amendment. Supporters of the amendment are howling. They say the language is designed to mislead and deceive the voters, and they promise to take the matter to court next week. Jesse Balmer, how does the ballot board and the Secretary of State's office justify that language?
Yeah, I mean, I think words matter, right? Like we craft them for our stories. You guys work on them for your various campaigns. And how something is worded really can influence like how people feel about it. It is true that this amendment would replace prior amendments that had done some redistricting reform measures that we used last year and the year before that were repeatedly struck down by the Ohio Supreme Court. But those were efforts to get at gerrymandering. So the information in this, a lot of it is true, but how are you reading it as the average voter is the concern of the people putting forward this amendment.
Terry, it reads like a negative ad. Negative ads are true. They just leave out the facts that are inconvenient. This really reads like an ad against the amendment.
Well, I'm telling you, this is like a warm-up exhibition game in the spring, because already the yes side has, I think, 17 million in TV reserved. There's going to be tens of millions more. So this is just a small little warm-up exercise. Believe me, both sides are going to be arguing and throwing things back and forth. And when you write an amendment that's 13,000 words, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of questions in there, including about they prohibit people from being able to talk to anybody on the commission outside of the meeting. And people would say that isn't quite right and constitutional.
But do you think the language as proposed accurately reflects what this amendment would do? For somebody who is uninformed and they go into that voting booth.
Well, I would argue not many people are going to be uninformed by Election Day. By Election Day, they're going to see tons of TV ads. They're going to.
But is that language reflective of what this amendment would do?
Maureen O'Connor says no. She would write it differently, but in the.
What does Terry Casey say?
Well, I might write it differently. And also, the argument at today's hearing was Don McTighe said we had our 4 bullet points and only 200 words, and then they pointed out, yes, but you forgot to explain who's going to pick this 15-member commission and how it's going to be done. So how much detail do you want to know? How much fine print do you want to read? To be determined.
Derek, is this help this cause for this gerrymandering amendment, or does it hurt it because it gives you a fight to say this is how the system is broken?
Well, I probably should trademark this phrase, but this is language gerrymandering. This is what it is. It's a very deceptive way to put out language that would confuse voters. That's basically what it's going to do, and I truly believe that it's going to backfire, because the Yes campaign is going to have the money to talk about how deceptive this language is. And they will be able to put out the truth of what the language is or the ballot language is supposed to do.
Well, Jake, this will go to court. They promised next week, as early as next week, it could be filed. Supreme Court likely will decide it. Even if the Supreme Court throws out this language, haven't folks who oppose this amendment already sort of won? Because we're talking about all of this. It causes confusion, causes complexity, and somebody who's not tuned in quite as closely as others might say, I'm not going to vote for that.
I wouldn't say it's lost, but I'd say it's definitely right now the language as is a point for people who are opposed to this amendment. I think that there's always going to be a presumption of voting no and changing the Constitution. I think people I don't know who this is, what this means, so I'm going to say no. And I think it's so long that I think there's more than that. You read, I don't want to read 1,000 words, so I'm just going to vote no. So I think that it's really going to be a game for the proponents to really explain what this does and win on the merits. So there's going to be not just a lot of mobilizing voters, but you need to teach this. You need to explain to them what this is.
What are the chances, because this happened last year, Jesse, with the Abortion Rights Amendment, that language was a little loaded, not quite as loaded as this, I think, objectively, and the Supreme Court changed some of that, made it go back and rewrite it.
Yeah, so it's possible that could happen. The balance of the Ohio Supreme Court right now, there are 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats, so we'll see if that plays any role in it. But to your point about the abortion rights measure, that was able to pass even with language that the people who are backing the amendment really didn't like, were very concerned about. So that's one point in favor of, maybe this language doesn't matter. On the other hand, people really know where they stand on abortion. Redistricting is a little more esoteric.
And I would predict that Justice Fisher on the Ohio Supreme Court, a Republican from Cincinnati, he might be the swing vote to do some fine tuning. So I don't think they'll throw it out totally, because who on the Supreme Court wants to try and rewrite it and make everybody happy? But there'll be some fine tuning of it.
This also reminds me of last year in that Republicans, you could argue, knew they were against the public opinion on the abortion issue. Every poll had a 55-45 supporting the Roe standard. Polls have shown voters want this. Is this what Republicans have to do to try to win? They can't win on the merits. They have to sort of play games with the ballot language and things like that?
Well, as Jesse noted, people knew on abortion they were for or against it. But on this, what is redistricting? And they'll make the argument on TV that we've already had 2 amendments passed with 70% of the voters, and the last plan that went into effect was bipartisanly, unanimously approved. So was that plan that bad? Is this better? What's it do? There's going to be a lot of arguments, but again, the difficulty is most people don't walk around thinking about redistricting and having predisposed opinions.
Yeah. We shall see. I think people know more about it now than they used to. But how many people vote on it, we'll see. First Energy has agreed to pay a $20 million fine to settle state charges in the nuclear bailout scandal. The company had already admitted it bribed former House Speaker Larry Householder and utilities regulator Sam Randazzo to get a $1 billion bailout for 2 nuclear power plants in northern Ohio. The utility notes in a business filing it will continue to cooperate with state and county prosecutors. The company has paid a $230 million federal fine and faces even more federal fines. Jake, $20 million is a lot of money to most of us. But First Energy makes $13 billion a year. So why did the state go for more?
I think that's the big question. How did they land on this $20 million number? But I'd say the best way to approach it and evaluating that number is just play the game of comparisons. There's a $4 million bribe to Sam Randazzo. There's $60 million that went to Larry Householder. Some of that was probably lawful political spending. Much of it wasn't. quantify accordingly. The federal government got $230 million out of this. First Energy expects to give $100 million to the SEC. How did they get to $20 million? Why is this number so much lower than every other real assessment of the wrongdoing here? And Dave Yost has not answered that question. He has been asked it 50 ways to Sunday.
Jesse, the state claims that the company's a much different company now. They fired the executives. They have cooperated with the investigation. They're willing to cooperate more. That's what the state and the company is saying. That's how they came to this number, right?
Yeah, I think some of the background is the state has filed charges against 2 former executives, the former CEO Chuck Jones and a vice president, Michael Dowling. And part of their argument in that case is that First Energy was like a bit of a victim of these individuals' actions. And so I think First Energy's cooperation in the prosecution of those other individuals certainly played a role in this ultimate settlement.
And one of the questions is, will there be any more indictments? Because it seems like the feds have not said no more indictments, but they've done nothing. And the question is, were there other legislators who got money or not? And then also in all these criminal cases, you got to prove criminal intent. And based on recent U.S. Supreme Court rulings, that's a tougher and higher standard to reach. So big question, will there be any more indictments to come?
I actually agree with Terry on that
You're
on
a
that
smart
sentiment.
guy.
Yeah, that's the question, to see if there's going to be any more indictments that will come from this scandal. And you know, the $20 million number, we may never know fully why that number was chosen by the Attorney General. But yeah, more to come on that.
As far as future indictments go, Jake, the statute of limitations for federal charges is 5 years. It's been 5 years since this bill passed and the campaign, the failed campaign to repeal it happened. It happened in the fall of 2019, I think September of 2019. So the federal statute of limitation is up in a couple of weeks, assuming that the criminal activity ended when the campaign ended.
Right, I'd say statute of limitation can be a term of art sometimes. I shouldn't say a term of art, but there's wiggle room. There's play in the joints there. You know, you could say, for instance, the conspiracy didn't necessarily end when that bill passed. There was still a play to get Larry Householder around term limits. That went to March of 2020. You could say that the conspirators were still conspiring after that point to get rid of evidence. So there are different things that could toll the statute of limitations. There could have been deals we don't know about that toll these things. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that, but if you just look and really say, what has the U.S. Attorney's Office done? They still have these 2 witnesses who pleaded guilty. They haven't been sentenced. That could mean different things. It could mean that they are still cooperating, that there's still a case in play, but there have been no new charges. The government has let First Energy out of this deferred prosecution agreement, or out of the better part of it at least. There's been no one arrested. They have allowed the PUCO to continue its investigations, and all this has played out so very publicly. You know, there have been press conferences, there have been umpteen media reports. I think if the U.S. Attorney were going to do something, they'd have done something.
The state has 6 years, Jesse Ballard, to the statute of limitations on felonies, nonviolent felonies. So we still have another year left if you go by the timeline of 2019.
Yeah, we'll see. The Ohio Attorney General, Dave Yost, has said that this isn't a closed investigation, but he hasn't guaranteed that there's going to be more charges. So it's another one of those questions that I'd love to know the answer to.
Yeah. What is your prediction? You predict more charges, Terry?
I have no idea,
Okay.
but the fact that nothing has happened in this much time tells you either the evidence isn't solid enough, because particularly federal prosecutors, they like to go into court almost with confessions and videotape. They don't like to lose in a courtroom. So any good prosecutor, if you don't have the evidence, you usually don't indict.
How about, Derek, letters to say, you did nothing wrong. The investigation has cleared you. I'm sure there are some officials would like to have this put behind them if they're going to run for future office.
I don't think that that's going to happen. But as to whether there'll be other indictments, that remains to be seen. But you know, from this scandal is one of the biggest in the United States, right? So I'm not sure if you're going to see any type of letters that are going to be coming.
Jake?
I'll tell you, the U.S. Attorney's almost in a pickle here when you think about it. So First Energy has admitted to bribing Larry Householder and another state official. Sam Randazzo has been charged. Larry Householder has been charged for taking that bribe. No one has been accused of paying it. All that is not illegal is logically legal. So in certain ways, you could read this as the government saying, well, paying the bribes is legal. Receiving them is illegal. How does that make sense? I don't know. But it's this really sticky wicket that's unavoidable here.
Because the CEO, the two executives, face state charges as of right now, not federal charges.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, the Columbus City Council and Columbus City officials continue to cope with the damage and the fallout from a cyber attack on its computer systems. The saga began about a month ago when the city detected a hack. It immediately disconnected city computers from the internet, disrupting services. A week later, the city announced it had thwarted a ransomware attack, but said some data was accessed. Then a ransomware group started to auction off city data on the dark web. But Mayor Andrew Ginther held a news conference and said most of that stolen data was useless.
So we had a breakthrough in this situation on Friday. I can now share that the personal data that the threat actor published to the dark web was either encrypted or corrupted. So the majority of the data obtained by the threat actor is unusable.
But that was not accurate. A private investigator claimed the data was available and included names, addresses, and social security numbers. The investigator says close to 500,000 people were included in the leak, including anyone who used a driver's license to enter City Hall and possibly crime victims. Terry Casey, these data breaches and hacks and ransomware attacks happen all the time. The city has not handled this perfectly. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it is a mess, and when you're the mayor and you say something Tuesday morning and it's immediately refuted on Tuesday afternoon, that's bad. And just now people are discovering, and there's questions of when you pay your water bill or set up to have that taken out of your bank account, or you're doing other kind of things, including your income tax filings, how protected are your social security numbers and other things? Because City Hall does have a lot of money, and there's serious questions on crime victims, women who are under protective orders. So unfortunately, the mayor and City Hall has not been very forthcoming.
This is going to be studied by, I think, crisis management folks for a while. But the city claims that they didn't want to agitate the criminals who were, threatening to release the data. They said there was an federal investigation or state investigation. They didn't want to interfere with that. But could the city have been more upfront, Derek?
Of course, they could have been more upfront. But, the bottom line is these cyber attacks, this is really a wake-up call to all governments. Because even though these type of cyber attacks happen often in a number of different circles, you're starting to see them happen more and more in government. So it's going to have, I think the IT departments of these cities and counties and even the state are going to have to really be looking at how they protect their data.
And I would argue that people in Columbus missed the wake-up call because in mid-June, the city of Cleveland got hit with a similar thing. The mayor there was more forthcoming. The city hall was almost shut down for a week. Here in Columbus, we should have realized if it hit Cleveland, it could hit us in Columbus.
Well, Columbus did shut down City Hall for a week. There were the email addresses you couldn't get through, and the through on one line was down. They had to write notes and stuff.
But the claim that nobody was at risk and there was no problem when TV anchors go on the screen and say, my social security number has been put on the dark web, that's not a good sign.
I'm guessing that Mayor Ginther had some bad words to tell people after he found out that what he said there was not accurate, Jesse.
Yeah. And I think really the focus should be on the people, the potential victims of crime, the individuals who are just interacting with the city, trying to pay their bills, trying to get a parking pass, who now has information out there. And so what is the city, what services can be offered so that people's personal information is not out there on the web? And that's, I think, where the city should be focusing its attention.
Jake, this is just part of life now. I've gotten 2 letters in the past year saying that 2 of the organizations I do business with were compromised and they're going to set up credit monitoring for me. Twice in the past year. And it's like, okay, you just deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, I've gotten these. It seems like it's kind of just a fact of life in the 21st century. It's unbelievable how many devices or sign-ins need to be paired with other devices and sign-ins, and then you get one, you seem to get the whole web.
Yeah.
And on the emails, you get emails from people saying your payment's been denied and you need to follow up and call this number, and that's tricksters trying to get your information.
Something I'd add here, though, is what really jumped out to me in these stories is the killer, or I'm sorry, not the killers, the data takers. They didn't want U.S. dollars. They wanted Bitcoin. And this is, this industry that's trying to legitimize itself and build this whole lobbying arm. And here they are doing crimes, asking for ransom and Bitcoin.
All right, let's get to our off-the-record final parting shots. Derek Clay, you're up first.
Yes, so looks like construction has started, or at least pre-construction has started out at the John Glenn International Airport for a brand new airport terminal that should be complete by 2028, 29.
All right.
I want to give a shout out to the new OSU quarterback, Will Howard, because my brother-in-law lives out in Kansas near the Kansas State campus. For the past 3 years, we followed Will Howard. He's the real deal. He's got the maturity, the experience, the speed, the passing. It's going to be an exciting fall.
We'll see. Jake.
I drove past Midway on the way here, and people were spilling out the bar at 3 p.m. on a weekday. So all the power to you, college kids.
College students are back. Jesse.
Headed to the Democratic National Convention to cover some of the people there, so I'm accepting tips on either stories or deep dish pizza.
What to think about that? I do predict, as Jesse heads to the Democratic National Convention, that there will be at least one cat held likely by a woman on stage at the Democratic National Convention, just like, what was the dog's name?
Baby dog.
Baby Dog. That made an appearance at the Republican convention. Anyway, that's my prediction. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation. We're on Facebook. You can also watch us anytime at our website, wosu.org/COTR. We're also on YouTube, where we're becoming quite popular, and the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.